Set the rules of the game. Set the rules of that sales conversation before you even start. In fact, use the analogy game. Sales Ascender! Happy day today. I hope you're doing well. Today is an awesome day. I hope you've had a wonderful week so far this week. I know we're just in the middle of it. It's hump day. That's exciting. So we still got a couple of days left here to go. But here is the secret. Here is the cool part. Today, we got an awesome question that came in from Ron. So let's just jump right into it. By the way, if you get any value of this, smash that like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're watching on YouTube. Thank you. And check this out. Ron asks this. He says, Sean, what if someone does not stop talking on the call? Now, there is this one time I was actually selling window and door hardware in North Denver, and I was going into this account, and I had been warned by my boss at the time. He said, listen, there's this guy in there, and all he likes to do is talk about hunting and fishing, and he never gets to any business, and nobody in our company has ever been able to break through the conversations. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I had this appointment set for him, and I knew I only had about an hour of time. And so before I even went in there, I was like, okay, I have to figure out how to make this short and keep him on track. And I didn't know how to do it. And I hadn't been studying or learning any selling systems yet. And so I was at this place where I went into this appointment. And I knew that after the appointment, I only had an hour for it. And I had to drive another hour to get to my next appointment thereafter. And so I was like, okay, so I need to be very, very precise. So I walked into the building. I was like, hey, I'm here to see Mike. Mike comes up to the front. We start talking and we start walking back. And all of a sudden, Mike's like, hey, I got to show you this thing. And I was like, okay, cool. So we start walking onto his shop floor and we go into the back and he's got this new machine. And what this machine did was literally, okay, so I was selling window and door hardware, like the locks, the locking mechanisms, the handles, some of that stuff, the hinges for windows. And these guys actually manufacture windows and doors. After about 8 minutes of that, we went from looking at this cool machine, which was awesome to see that. And I'm glad that he was open enough to share that. And we went into his office, sat down, and I was like, okay, first thing is I just got to make a little bit of a connection with this guy. How do I do that? And I happened to see a fishing picture of a river that I had fished previously, and he had fished apparently because he had a picture of it. And I was like, hey, is that this river? There's a red river. And he goes, yeah, that's the Red River. Have you ever fished there? I was like, yeah, I love fly fishing. And that was it. That was the wrong thing for me to say, because literally he went off into this world of, I'm going to talk about fishing. I'm not going to talk about window and door hardware because it's not interesting to me. And so he started jabberjawing and he got off topic and he was going down this channel. And I didn't know what to do because I was like, oh my gosh, I got to go here pretty soon. And I got to the point where I knew I needed about at least 15 minutes to discuss some of the stuff that we were working on getting involved with him on. And so I said, hey, Mike, man, I'd love to come back and just connect about fly fishing. Maybe we could even go fly fishing sometime if you're up for that. But what I'd like to do is maybe just discuss a couple of things here. And just magically, I reset the agenda for the call. So I kind of interrupted him and I said, with respect, I know you're a busy guy. I'm a busy guy. I got another drive to go for about an hour. My next appointment's coming up here. So I was wondering if we can just talk about this and this. And he goes, okay, no problem. And right at that moment in that middle of that sales call, I was like, oh, wow, I should set the agenda. I should set the rules of this sales call so that I know that we're going to stay on track. And from that day on, and then I moved into some of the sales training that I took, I realized that there's this whole piece called setting the rules of the game. It's actually stage 2 of our Ascension method. And the secret is before you even get into the meeting, take the initiative as the sales professional or sales center to say something like this, hey, today, I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to speak with you. I'm going to ask you a few questions about this and this. I'm sure you're going to have some questions for me. And then at the end, we're going to figure out one thing or another and what we're going to do. And so literally, I started setting the rules of every game, every sales call that I was going through. And what happened was my time became super efficient and I was able to collapse the getting off track. And so if you're in that place where you're listening to a sales call, you're in a sales call, somebody starts going way off tangent, all you need to do is politely interrupt them and say, hey, listen, I respect your time. I would love to talk about this. Would you like to schedule another time to talk about this? Let them answer and then say, great. Well, today what I wanted to just cover was this and this. And all of a sudden they're like, okay, let's talk about that. And they can switch and it's no big deal. And next thing you know, you've got the agenda put together, you're back on track and you've put the rail car back on the tracks and you can move in the right direction. And so if that happens to you in the middle of the call, please do that. Now, moving forward, any other sales conversations that you get into, when you first start getting into a sales conversation, please, please, please do this. Set the agenda, set the rules of the game, set the rules of that sales conversation before you even start. In fact, use the analogy game, G-A-M-E. I'm grateful to have the opportunity to chat with you. Today, I want to cover this and this, and I'm going to ask you a few questions about these things, right? And I'm sure as we get into this conversation, you're going to have some questions for me, M for me. And then lastly is, hey, and at the end, we're going to decide if we're a fit to work together. We can either go down this path or we can go down this path. Does that sound like a fair agenda to you? And every single time, I've never, ever, when I started putting this into my world, guess what happened? My close rates went up by 36%. It's as simple as just putting the agenda into the sales call. I call it setting the rules of the game. This is a strong and powerful move, and I really highly encourage you to use that. So if you're just starting a sales call, make sure and set that agenda early. Use that analogy game like I just explained. And if you are in the middle of a sales call and somebody just goes jabberjaw on you, it's okay. Wait for them to take a breath and just politely interrupt and say, hey, Joe, hey, Mike, hey, Stan, whatever the guy's name is or girl's name is that you're speaking with, and just say simply, I would love to continue talking about that. But in fact, I respect your time and my time is valuable as well. My next appointment is going to be coming up here. So what I'd like to do is just kind of shift what we're talking about from that into these two things. Does that sound okay? And so you can rescue yourself in the middle of the sales call. Don't be afraid to interrupt the prospect. Right? Prospects are typically, if they're it's a couple of times you'll run into a prospect, they're really busy and they don't have time and they'll just be right to the point. Other times you'll run into prospects that are like, oh, I've got some time. I don't have any appointments thereafter. I'm going to jabberjaw with this guy because I like him. The good news is if somebody's jabberjawing like that with you, that means you've connected pretty well with them and you're in bond and you're rapporting with them pretty good because they want to keep talking with you, right? And so that's really it. So if somebody keeps talking like that, just politely interrupt them. Say, I respect your time. My time's valuable too. My next appointment's coming up. Here is the things that I just needed to discuss with you today. Let's talk about this and this. And they'll be like, great. And moving forward, after you've heard this video, again, use that analogy game. Again, I'm grateful that I'm going to have the ability to chat with you today. Thank you for having me in. Today, we're going to talk about this and this. I'm going to ask you a few questions. I'm sure you've got some questions for me. And then at the end, here's the one of two ways is the things that's going to happen. Does that sound like a fair agenda to discuss today? And when you say it with the right tonality, I can assure you that people will respect it. They will love you for it. It will keep you on track. And literally, if your sales conversations are like an hour and a half, 2 hours, sometimes 2.5 hours, like however long they're going right now, this is the one move that you can put into your sales calls every single day that will shorten that sales cycle down. Because I believe if you've been doing a lot of meetings that are about an hour and a half long, this will allow you to break it down to 30, 45 minutes, maybe 50 minutes. Because I believe whatever you can accomplish in an hour and a half, I know you can accomplish in about 45 minutes. And that's just because I've tested it on myself. I know you could probably do the same thing as well. So with that said, guys, use that upfront contract or the rules of the game or however you want to call it. Like I like to just basically set the rules of the agenda of the call, the rules of the game is what we call it. And watch what happens. It will help you. When I put this into my world, my close percentage is boosted by about 36%, like I said, and it will do the same for you. With that said, I hope this high-ticket tune-up helped you. I love sharing these tips. If you have a question, please drop a comment. And if you disagree with me, I want to know. Like, let's have a conversation. Just drop it in the comments. I'm looking forward to speaking with you again tomorrow. And man, go fight, win. Let's ascend. Go get them. We'll talk to you soon.